my first time in Ireland. Yes, and I've already learned something very significant, and that is in the toilet in the hotel, there's only one outlet, and it will only support a men's shaver. Right? So I thought something was wrong with me, so I'm looking around for the outlet. Has anyone ever done that before? Okay. Because I just want to tell you, in the United States, there's a lot of plugs in the bathroom. So I'm looking around, I'm like, surely there's a problem here. There's got to be a mistake. So I called down to the front desk, and I asked about the plug. And they said, oh, no, there's only for the men's shaver. And I said, well, why? And she said, well, the electrocution. What, am I going to get into the bathtub with my blow dryer and go crazy? So it's really cool, the technology that we have in the United States is that if you are blow drying your hair in the bathtub and the blow dryer falls in the water, it'll just immediately shut off. So it's a really cool new tech. I hope we share that with the universe, because my very first act that I would like to do is equality of outlets. Because although my hair looks a little rough, I got to tell you, the beard is off. Fabulous. So it's such a joy to be with you to talk about the power of relationships. Because relationships guide absolutely everything in our life, don't they? My career started in the 80s as a nurse, a registered nurse, working in end-of-life care with pediatric patients. So all of my patients, I had a roster of 30 per month, had 6 months or less to live. So my job was basically a midwife between this world and the next in helping children and their parents with this very difficult transition. Where I became captivated was with the stories of the parents, the stories of the children, all different ages, and I was pulled in and moved by the stories, so moved that I decided to go back to graduate school, save the world, and cure cancer through molecular physiology. But I realized that I had made an error, and that is that my gifts and talents were not served behind the microscope. I missed people. I missed the stories. So what I found myself doing was moving back into story and creating a bridge between technology and medicine and the layperson, and taking all of these incredible things that we were discovering in science and technology and giving a voice to it in such a way as it was digestible to an average human being. And I had a lot of pleasure with that, because when people can understand, when they can understand technology, they can understand science, they can understand what we're doing, there's a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of backing behind it. And then I discovered that actually marketing and sales really loves that ability, right? That ability to tell a story and connect people at a very deep level so that they can see themselves in a product or a service. And so that took me into dealing in the area of marketing and sales. It's been kind of an interesting journey, but it's all a story, right? None of it's true, it's just a story, and we all have stories sitting here. What I found interesting was that last week I was in London speaking at a conference for Wired Magazine and IBM. And what was interesting was that here we were talking about the Internet of Things, IoT. We were talking about cognitive computing. We were talking about smart buildings and connected cities. And the one question, the most salient question that came up was, what's IoT? And you know why we're giggling, right? Because that is the discussion, isn't it? What is it? What's cognitive computing? And so how do you describe those types of things to not only everybody out there, because this is going to affect everyone, but how? And we got into this discussion about the identity of things instead of the Internet of Things, the identity of things. So things actually have an identity now. Things are people too. We're going to be able to communicate between things, right? We're going to have things be able to do things for us. So it's now this huge identity of things. And how is it going to affect our future? What does our future look like? Is it Star Trek? Am I going to order my latte from my wall? All kinds of possibility, but yet still all in the realm of possibility, still in the realm of story. Now, when Ann O'Day asked me to come talk, first of all, I was wildly excited because I'm one of the millions of Americans who are also Irish. So now you have to say, welcome home. And there are actually more Irish people in the United States than there are in Ireland. I'm just letting you know. A lot of them, right? So we are massive in number, but it's been my first trip back, and I'm so excited because after I'm done here enjoying Inspirefest, I'm going to go see some of the places that my family is from. And when I came, I decided, there would be nothing more delicious than to find a story that is completely entrenched in Irish tradition. And so I did a little research on the ancient storytellers of Ireland, the Seanchaí, and I wrote an article, and it is published in the Silicon Republic about the Seanchaí and how really modern day marketing is just going back to old school ways, telling stories. Now, when I was trying to find a story to present to you for Inspirefest, there's one problem with Irish stories, and they all end the same way. Someone is dragged off to the underworld by fairies. So try finding an inspiring story that way. So we had to flip it on its head and say, there's something to be learned from all of these stories. And probably the most powerful woman in Irish lore, folklore, is the powerful warrior queen Maeve. How many of you are aware of Maeve? Oh, she was quite something, right? They said intoxicating beauty. And I wonder if that's because it was the monks who passed these stories on, so it was really nice to talk about the intoxicating beauty of Maeve. But Maeve was interesting in that archetypally, there are a lot of things in common with Maeve and women of today. Now, Maeve was someone who ruled with great power, but she also suffered from a perceived lack, which caused her to kill her sister for a man, for a husband. We don't know any women like that today, do we? I might have worked for a CEO that could have been Maeve reincarnated. Another thing we might have in common with Maeve is the fact that Maeve actually gave away her power to her child. Her son dethroned her. She willingly left a position of power because she wanted for him to become the king of the underworld. How many times do women give their power away to another? Some do give their power away to a child. Some give it away to a partner. Some give their power away because they don't see any other choice. But I'd like to say to you today that this is also a lesson we can take from Maeve, in that we don't have to give away our power. We don't have to diminish ourselves so that others can feel better about themselves. We actually are more effective when we stand in our power to give others permission to stand in their power as well. Another thing we can learn about Maeve is that she had her feet placed firmly in two worlds, one in the world of form and one in the other world. We too, all of us, male and female, have our feet placed in two worlds. We are here in the world of form, and we're talking with one another in this world, but all the while we have a foot in the other plane, and that is because each one of us here, irrespective of gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, all of us have one truth in common, and that is this too shall pass. And in that, we must think of our lives starting with the end. How is it that we want to write our own story? What relationships matter to us the most? What are we doing to cultivate depth and meaning into our lives and to leave this place with a legacy changed because we were here? Maeve might have been a lot of things, and she certainly was not a lot of things, but one thing she did is she left a legacy. We're still talking about her. Will anyone talk about you? Thank you.
Want to be in the audience next time? Click here for tickets to Inspirefest 2017.